Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Joe Megibow, who is the CEO of Bright Cellars. I guess you're on your 8th month now?
Yeah, just about.
Having come from being CEO of Purple, which, of course, I'm wearing in honor of that. So I'm so curious, moving from Bed in a Box company, one of the best, mind you, to a wine club. Let's start with that. Why?
Why wine?
Why wine? Yeah.
Sure. Wine's a passion of mine.
Is it?
And personally, my dad was a doctor in the Air Force, and when I was very young, we got stationed in Germany for a number of years. And
that becomes a beer story at that point,
yes,
right?
But it also, German white wines are a phenomenal category. And he brought that love of wine back. In my childhood, wine was on the dinner table every night, like salt and pepper. It wasn't a thing. It was just part of dinner.
That's childhood drinking. No,
Exactly.
Actually, you know what? I grew up in that atmosphere too, but that's Scotland and Germany. So, and it's interesting. I remember Canada just came out with these guidelines that basically said no amount of alcohol is safe. I was like, what? That sounds kind of humorless. So we can get to that later. But, the demographics that we are in, I'm going to use that term broadly, is different when you look at some of the wine consumption patterns with this new generation. I know that's right. Something you've looked at. Well, what are you doing differently?
And even non-generational, the punchline for me was I had stopped drinking wine. And I was asking
So I say
myself,
congratulations or sympathy?
No. And I grew up with a love of wine. It wasn't that I wasn't drinking. I just was choosing other alcoholic beverages and not wine. And the main reason for me, which is very relevant to this newer generation of wine drinker, is it got so complicated that it was...
you don't just go into the wine store, C92 and go, I'll take
exactly.
that?
Well, you go to your restaurant and they may have 10 or 12 entrees and you love this restaurant and the wine list comes out and they hand you 250 choices. And
so you're talking about the paradox of choice. Too much choice being as debilitating as too little?
Partly paradox of choice, but then how do you even dimensionalize that choice? Where do I even begin? Because it turns out most of the choices, I don't even know what they mean. So you pick, to your point, okay, I know what a Cabernet is, so I'll pick the second least expensive Cabernet on the menu, and how bad can that be?
Because nobody wants to look cheap.
Because no one wants to look cheap. And that means out of 250, I've laser focused on one that likely isn't what I'm going to enjoy the most, but I don't know the difference. Or I can have someone with a wine PhD and a silly tin cup come over and tell me lots of things that I'm not sure I even care about because I just want a nice bottle of wine with my dinner.
Right.
And I stopped drinking wine. And this generation coming in, I think, is facing that same frustration.
Is it an intimidation factor, or are they turning to CBD gummies and microdosing instead? Because you're competing with a lot of different elixirs.
Sure. It's not, drinking is down among Gen Z as per prior years. But
we're here to increase drinking for Gen Z.
That's right.
No.
But it's still a massive category.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, wine alone it depends on the count, but call it around $80 billion in the U.S.
How many wineries are there in the U.S. right now?
There's like 10,000 wineries in the U.S., so a very fragmented industry.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, it is a passion project. They retire, they get a little plot of land, they're suddenly a winery. And a lot of wineries are not that different than Main Street America. It's a little mom and pop who produces some great wine with very limited distribution, and it's a very long tail of a lot of small wineries.
Well, what did you take from, and you were at American Eagle prior to Purple
I was.
So what did you learn from your previous experiences that you've taken over to this industry?
A common theme for me and my passion is I love customer, I love consumer, and at the end of the day...
Nobody ever says they don't love their customers, though.
No, well, I think I won't name names, but there are definitely companies out there who don't behave that way.
Right.
They are managing to costs, they're managing to profits, they're managing to their shareholders. And that's not to say that's bad, but the customer can easily get lost. And companies often create abstractions to think they're servicing the customer, but their customers, if everyone really loved their customers, companies wouldn't go out of business. And they do all the time because they lose sight of what business they're in and what they're trying to do. And that's been my theme is what business are we in? What does our customer want? How do we best service them? Ideally in a profitable way. We've got to have a business that actually is sustainable. But how can we build a value equation that our customers love, that have favorable unit economics that we can make money on? And that's been true of every business I've done.
Well, is Purple, I mean, Purple is you could say a triumph of product promotions. But when I mentioned those 175, bed in a box companies, Purple was clearly in the top 5, top 10, and what did you do there that you think really differentiated from the market? Because you're in an even more crowded space now.
Yeah, in some ways. So when I joined Purple, we had recently gone public through a SPAC.
Right.
We had never been profitable, and our cash position was not in a good spot. One of the first things I had to do was both a round of layoffs and find a way to get some cash into the company, which fortunately we were able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we were lost in the shuffle. We were early, and we had a technically differentiated product that was a phenomenal product. But with all the new entrants, they were making all the new claims that we were. My
World's best coffee.
That's right.
Who doesn't have it?
My first day on the job, I did an all hands with the whole company, and I read all of these claims about how great our mattress was. And then I kind of pulled the cover off and said, by the way, every claim I just made, I took off of our competitors' websites.
Right.
Everyone was claiming, no, of course not. I had a great team.
No.
But everyone had co-opted our claims for themselves, and we were no longer differentiated. So our customers didn't know who or what we were. And we had to, at the time, Casper was doing phenomenally well as a brand, and I challenged the team just at minimum, anytime anyone references Casper and someone else, let's always at least be the and.
It's like Avis, we try harder. You wanted to be the Avis of mattresses.
I wanted to be the Avis try harder. And in the end, we ended up on top. But